Hello again YouTube, and welcome back to Just Get a Tesla. And I have had this Model Y long range for 2 years and I've done 40,000 miles, and on this week's video I'm going to tell you the things I like and the things that I don't. As you can probably tell, it is a beautiful sunny evening here at the mouth of Aberdeen Harbour, but we're not interested in the river and the ships and the sun and all the rest of it. We're interested in cars, specifically this car. So 2 years, 40,000 miles, I have driven this car the length and the breadth of the country and back repeatedly. I have taken it on ludicrously twisty and narrow roads, almost falling off into the sea. I have taken the thing on tip runs with the car absolutely loaded to the roofline. In essence, you name it, and I've done it. So I've got a few things to say about my experience in this car and what I've learned. So just like my previous review, after 12 months and 20,000 miles, I'm going to talk about 5 things. But in this case, 5 things that I like, and then 5 things that I don't like. This car is by no means perfect, but there are some absolutely brilliant things about owning this car and having a Tesla. And number one, and I do put this number one, the feel good factor. This car puts a grin on my face like nothing else I've ever driven. And I've had it for 2 years now. And usually at that point, I'm starting to get itchy feet. What's next? What am I going to get to replace it? What's the latest thing that has caught my eye? Nothing like that with this car. Genuinely, it's always fresh. There's always something new. They keep adding new features. It is the ultimate buzz car. And let's just address the elephant in the room up front. This is an electric car, which means that for the petrol heads, for the absolute hardcore petrol and diesel people, they're probably going, my God, what is he talking about? How can this be a feel-good car? It's got no soul. Well, it has got a soul. It's an electrical soul. This car literally hums, okay? This car puts that into your life in a way that I just can't describe. So the feel good. Number 2, this car is comfortable all day long. I have done full day trips in this car from early in the morning through actually to early evening, 12 hours of travel, and got out the other end not feeling like I've been cramped, like I've been squished up, like my back or my knees or my legs are uncomfortable. This is a really comfortable cruiser. It has not got the most comfortable seats I've ever had in a car. That was the Volvo. They were unreal. But if you want a car that you can literally do full day trips in and get out the other end feeling great, Tesla are really, really, really good at building seats that just work. They're not fancy, they're not super luxurious, they haven't got extendable under-thigh bolsters, but these seats are great. And because this car has been built from the ground up, there's no compromise when it comes to seating position or the steering wheel being offset or the pedal box being offset. Everything is perfectly lined up. You will sit properly in this car, and your chiropractor will be happy about it if you've had to have one. And you know what? I have got to the point of having a bad back. Some cars really make me uncomfortable when I sit in them, not this one. The third point, and this is probably part of the reason why I've got point number 1 in terms of being a feel-good car, which is the hustle. How can I put this? This is not a small car, okay? I've mentioned I had a Mini Cooper in 2015, and that's only a little thing, but you could hustle that thing like it was on rails. Now this obviously is a slightly different experience. It's much heavier, it's much bigger, it's much higher, and yet this car will absolutely attack twisty roads, fun roads, go out there into the country and start hooning the thing around, and you will have a good time in this car. And I think it's not just the amount of power that it's got. And again, this is the long range version with 507 horsepower, which is a lot. It isn't the horsepower. Okay, it is partly the horsepower, but it's not just the horsepower. It has got excellent body control. It's probably a bit stiff for normal use, but there is a purpose to that, which is that you can chuck the thing around. And then, of course, the other point, with an electric drivetrain, so a motor at the front and a motor at the rear, this thing drives in a completely different way to a mechanical car, which means that you can lift off in the corner and the car rebalances itself so that you can turn in tighter. It doesn't unsettle the car the way that it does with mechanical cars, where you might start getting, say, lift off understeer and fun like that. This car noses its way into bends. Believe me, even big popper like this, you can absolutely hustle the thing along and have a whole load of fun with it. The fourth brilliant thing about this car, it feels bomb-proof. And I'm saying that with an eye on the fear, uncertainty and doubt brigade, who talk about the fact that, oh, your battery's going to explode, or it's going to fail, or it's going to be worthless and you're going to have to replace it, and how much is that going to cost? These cars will just run, and this really does feel like it's going to do so. Remember, this car is a keeper. I am not planning to trade this in for the next model. I am not planning on swapping it out for something else. We want to keep this and we want to run it. And that means a long-term ownership proposition where I'm not worried about it becoming obsolete or broken or having a range of 10 miles or something. And with the endless, and I do mean endless, over-the-air software updates that Tesla keep pushing out, this is going to continue to be relevant in whichever year we get into, because the hardware is equipped in this car to have the thing driving around by itself without me in the driver's seat, if the legislators would allow it to. And the computer is fast enough and modern enough to be able to keep doing those things. In the 2 years since I've had this car, they enabled the matrix LED headlights, which were fitted but not switched on, because the software that needed to make them work with the autopilot system, they were still working on it, and because they wanted to roll it out globally, it wasn't there until suddenly over comes the software, and here we are, matrix LED headlights. That is a new feature that's been added to this car since I got it. I have recently added the acceleration boost, video coming soon, which again changes the way that the car feels, the way that it drives, the way that it accelerates. That isn't something you can do otherwise, unless you go out and start, faffing around with having a car chipped or having it remapped or any of those other things. This isn't a remap. This is the car that I bought. They've just added something else on. That, for me, keeps it always interesting. There's going to be something new. Keep owning a Tesla. And the number five. And this is one that, again, there will probably be a bit of disagreement in the comments, but this car has low running costs, okay? Not buying costs, so park that out of the way. This is not a cheap car to buy on a monthly basis, but once it's paid off, right, it will then cost nothing, obviously, but the actual running costs of this car, when I looked at how much money I had spent to drive this car, it was less than 5p a mile. And if you haven't seen my cost video, go and do so. Less than 5p a mile in electricity, fuel, call it whatever you want, costs to drive the car. That is genuinely sensational compared to practically anything else that you can get that's on the road. And don't forget, it's an EV, which means at the moment, in late 2024, it's still zero road tax in the UK. It's a Tesla, which means it has no maintenance schedule. Unlike Mercedes, BMW, Audi, and all of the other ones who sell you an EV and then say, you've got to go and get the thing serviced every 15,000 miles and we're going to charge you 300 quid. This has nothing. I went onto BMW's website to have a look at their EV ownership proposition. And one of the extras they were trying to sell me for my BMW i5 electric car was a servicing package which, quote, included oil changes, right? As in oil in the engine and spark plugs and all of the other things that this car doesn't have. Well, BMWs don't have them either if they're electric, and they still want to charge you for servicing. Not with Tesla. So they're my 5 things that are good. It's endlessly grin inducing. It is comfortable all day long. It will hustle along like you wouldn't believe. It's bomb proof and it's cheap to run. But there are 5 other things. And these are the bad, the less positive about the Tesla experience. How can I put it? Number 1, it's not cheap. So I ended the good things part of the video saying it's cheap to run, and it is, but it isn't cheap to buy. And this is the problem. They're not particularly cheap, but if you can get a 0% deal, and they keep doing these things, then a 0% deal is definitely worth your while. And if you want £1,000, euros, dollars, whatever, off your Tesla, use my referral code and you can get a slightly cheaper car. In the UK though, at the moment, the thing that is eye-wateringly silly is car insurance. And yes, it's going up for everything, but Tesla seem to have a little bit of a disadvantage versus quite a few other electric car brands and electric cars that I can think of. Okay, it's not cheap to insure, but this car has got 507 horsepower. That's never going to be cheap to insure because it's 507 horsepower. It's a lot of horsepower. So you've just got to consider that, right? If you want to go for Tesla and you want to go for anything that's other than just the rear wheel drive, lower powered versions, it's not going to be cheap and you're going to get stung when you're insuring it. The second one, I've just mentioned in the good bits of the video that they enabled matrix headlights. But this car has got potential which is unfulfilled, and the matrix headlights were absolutely a part of that. I have got matrix LED headlights which don't work. It's a problem. Okay, they've now sorted that, but they should have done that in the first place. This car has got all of the hardware to do full self-driving, and we really are talking full self-driving, as in it will drive itself everywhere. It's built into the car, the cameras, the computer. It will do it, but it doesn't. And it's annoying, and I know there are quite a few owners who actually were brave enough to put the money in up front to have FSD capability enabled on their car. And of course, the only FSD capability is the fact that the bits are there and it doesn't work. Okay, I have driven UK cars with FSD capability and it's just a complete waste of time. Until they actually deliver on their promise, there's always going to be a bit of promise unfulfilled. And similarly, how can I put this? The auto wipers are still possessed by Satan. 2 years in, they haven't got really any better. They've made tweaks, they've made adjustments, the software will go and reprogram them, but they're still not great. Now, okay, I don't think I've had brilliant auto wipers on any car, and I've had them on cars since 2002, so 22 years. And I don't think any of them have been good, but it has to be said, Tesla's auto wipers are amongst the bottom in terms of the way that they work. They're really not good. They should have fixed it, and they haven't yet done so. Similarly, I've talked about the matrix LED part of the headlights, but the auto bit, for most of the, well, for the first year and a half or so that I had this car, where the LED matrixy bit wasn't switched on, you basically just had automatic full beam. So it would go onto main beam and then it would take it off again. But the sensor wasn't really doing a great job. It would take too long to go back on, or it wouldn't come off quickly enough. Now, okay, so the LED matrixy fiddly bit has improved it, but it still isn't great. The third one. This comes up quite a lot in the comments. And that is that the ride in this car, I think, could be generously described as unforgiving, or less generously described as hard, okay, or rough. I believe that cars built after mine, so this is a this is a July 2022 build in Shanghai. As I understand it, cars that have been built after this one, and this is a mid-2022 car, but cars built after that are supposedly equipped with slightly tweaked dampers so that the ride is a little bit more forgiving, but I believe it's only a little bit. It's not going to make a massive difference. This is not a subtle car to drive the way that it handles bumps. And the one thing you have guaranteed in the UK is when you're driving along, the road is going to be lumpy, bumpy, because we're just rubbish at maintaining our roads. It could be better. It's not the most harsh riding car that I've ever had. The Volvo S90 on its 20-inch rubber band tyres, right? They were even worse than this on potholed roads. But this isn't great. The only thing that's going for it is that it's a long wheelbase, okay? So short wheelbase cars kind of bounce a little bit as you go over humps or through potholes or whatever else. This at least spreads them out. But if this car had, how can I put this, adaptive dampers or air suspension, then the problem would go away. But Tesla don't fit it on the Model 3 or Model Y. They save that for the Model S, which of course I can't have because they don't currently sell that car in right-hand drive. Cheers, Elon. It's a problem. The fourth one, and this is one that I debated, do I put this in the list or not? But I think the fourth thing that is a problem with this car is the safety systems, not because they're fitted, but because of the way that they work. So again, let's get something out of the way first. This car, when it was built, was the safest car ever made. Okay? The people who go on about Tesla being unsafe because the battery's going to explode or whatever else, they're just talking out their bottom. So this car, when Euro NCAP and the American regulators tested them and did the crash testing, was the safest car both of them had ever rated. So this is a safe car. But part of that safety rating is around the electronics, is around the way that it manages potential hazards and then warns you. You need to turn most of those systems off to stop them shouting at you. So in the drive down here to Aberdeen this evening, I had the car shrieking at me several times over because it thought that I was about to drive off the side of the road, which I wasn't. It had literally picked up in error that the tarmac was ending where the wheel was, and it just wasn't. So I have no idea what the car is thinking some of the time, but beep, 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 beep. Shush, you're being flappy, right? You're being overly worried. Just let me drive the car. So Elon Musk famously added something called Joe mode because some bloke called Joe tweeted and said, hey Elon, the car's warning bongers and things is basically disturbing my baby that's asleep in the back. Is there a way to turn them down? He said sure, and created Joe mode, where it basically makes it quieter. What we need is calm down mode, okay? One where, never mind having to manually switch all of these things off, I don't want to switch them off. I like having a car that's got all of this suite of safety features and being the most safe car that was ever made. But it'd be just good if they calmed it down a little bit. In recent software upgrades, and it is, I think, software related, but whatever they've done, it has just made it skittish and overly worried about everything. And that is just the thing that increasingly is a pain in the bum. Okay, number 5. While we're talking about pain in the bum, we've got to talk about Elon Musk. This is going to be the bit of the video that I know some people are not going to like. Okay, this is not about politics, okay? If you're in America, I don't care who you vote for, but I think you should vote because voting is important in a democracy. But what I'm talking about is the way that basically Elon Musk has latched onto practically every conspiracy theory that you can think of and is now using Twitter to amplify this lunacy. And we had it in the UK recently where a whole load of aggro kicked off and we had riots in towns and cities up and down the country. And Elon Musk is promoting by commenting on them and in some cases retweeting them the most extreme right-wing nut jobs who are basically saying it's all the fault of foreigners and immigrants and all of the rest of it. And I just wish, I really do wish that Elon Musk would stop, right? He is a brilliant, insightful, decisive, dynamic business leader, okay? Him at PayPal with the other guy, obviously PayPal is something that I use on a practically daily basis. Big tick. Tesla, he didn't create the company, but transforming it into what it does now, absolutely. SpaceX, a sensational example of what happens when you say, hey, why do we have to do it like that? Why can't we do it like this? And he's doing it because he says we're going to have to go and colonize another planet if we all want enough food at the rate of population growth, which, by the way, guys, is actually true statistically, okay? I use Starlink. It has transformed the way that I'm able to access the internet at the kind of speeds that I want, okay? Elon Musk is a good person when it comes to business, with the exception of Twitter. And here's the problem. I think it's got to the point now where it's becoming so extreme that it is putting people off buying Teslas. There is a decline in sales in 2024 versus 2023. And okay, yes, wider market impacts and all of the rest of it, but, Elon is definitely part of the problem, and there is comment after comment after comment after comment now on this channel from people who say, look, I like Tesla, but I just can't do Elon Musk. I can't be associated with Elon Musk. It's getting embarrassing. And that's actually a point that, how can I put it, isn't really anything to do with the car. It's just to do with the guy who owns the business, right? Or at least a controlling stake in the business who makes the car. This car was built in China. And I know some people are like, oh, you don't want cars from China. Hey, this car is very, very well built. My previous but one Volvo S90 was also built in China and owned by China and really, really well built. This is not, as I said at the beginning, about politics. This is just about business, which is he needs to be focused on the business side of things, on getting the new small Tesla launched and the robo-taxi thing and pushing FSD out into other markets. So going out there and being nice to politicians rather than abusing them. He needs to be focused on SpaceX. He needs to be focused on all of the other businessy things that are not political. In my opinion, some of you will disagree, but I think Elon Musk is becoming both an embarrassment and an impediment to the success of Tesla and with it, electric vehicles. Anyway, guys, what do you think? That's my list. 5 things that are good, and then the 5 things that are bad in terms of it's expensive to buy and insure. It's got undelivered potential. The ride is just unforgiving. All of the warning bongers are getting out of control. And then, of course, the Elon factor. If you've got other things, both on the good list or the bad list, that you think that I should have been talking about, then tell me. Put it in the comments. Let's have a discussion about it. Over the last 2 years that I've been doing this, I have genuinely been blown away by just how much this community has grown and by the number of people who are subscribing and watching my videos. Thanks, guys. I really do appreciate it. It's all about the conversation. If you haven't subscribed already and you're not part of this growing community and you're not regularly in the conversation, then get subscribing now. Click the subscribe button, hit the bell icon, share the video. If you can still see it because it's starting to get dark. It is late September, and even in northern latitudes like I'm at now, it starts going dark earlier. And I'll be honest, it's caught me out a little bit as to just how dark it's got. Anyway, let me know. What do you think? What's good? What's bad? And I'll see you back here very soon on Just Get a Tesla.